Welcome to the Accounting Success Podcast. Ian Wellham is a chartered accountant, helping other CPA firms maximize their profit potential and become the most relevant advisor to clients. To learn how you can add value, introduce new revenue streams, and move into high-value advisory services, simply go to www.haydenrock.com. On the podcast, Ian brings together successful accountants and industry thought leaders to share with you how they serve business owners and how you can too. And now, here is your host, Ian Wellham.
Hello and welcome to the Accounting Success Podcast. I'm excited today to be talking to Bruce Buchanan, President and Managing Principal of Berlin Ramos in Rockville, Maryland, just outside Washington, D.C. Now, Bruce began his public accounting career as an entry-level accountant with Berlin Ramos back in 1973. He's continued with the firm ever since, becoming a manager in 81, principal in 85, and taking on his current role as managing principal in 1994. The firm has 52 employees and 5 current partners and specializes in the real estate industry. So, first of all, Bruce, great to have you on the call today. Thanks for your time and willingness to share your pearls of wisdom with the audience today.
Good morning, Ian. I'm happy to be here and pleased to speak with you.
That's great. So let's jump right in. Berlin Ramos is what I call a progressive accounting firm, or maybe a better term is sort of like super cool. Because for starters, not only are you the firm's head honcho, but at an age when others might consider slowing down a little. And I'm told you play in 2 classic rock bands. Is that true?
That is true. One of the 2 bands I first played with as a 15-year-old, and we're celebrating the 50th anniversary of our first gig by playing for a class reunion in Pennsylvania on August 27th. So the 3 men that are in that band with me are the same 3 individuals that I started with almost 50 years ago. And we have a great time when we get together now.
Well, that's really fantastic. And what do you play in the band?
I play keyboards. I have a Hammond organ that weighs about 450 pounds, so it's not truly portable. But when my buddies visit, often I'll play on that classic instrument combined with the Leslie speaker in our rec room at home. The acoustics are very good, so no one's eardrums get damaged. And then when we play somewhere else, I have 2 modern keyboards that are portable that I take with me.
Wow,
I end up using those keyboards when I play with a local band here in the Washington, D.C. area. And we have the privilege of playing for the public about 3 times a year at local spots where they host music here in the D.C. area.
And how many of the other band members are accountants?
I am the only accountant. We have diverse groups with both my band of origin and with the current local band that I've been playing with for about the last dozen years. So we bring a different perspective to the music, and I do believe that music and math go together, so it's not completely illogical that a CPA would also be involved in music, and great fun with it. It's never going to be my day job, but it's a very enjoyable hobby.
Do you have a couple of favorite songs as well?
Well, it's hard to beat Give Me Some Lovin' by the Spencer Davis Group. That would be up there close to the top of the list. And a very different song, but one I also love, is called The Wait by the band. And I've been playing that with the group I call my band of origin, Nickel Plate Road, just for the last few years as we've gotten more into singing harmonies. Wow.
Well, that's fantastic. In fact, I'd like to talk more about it, but we're going to get totally sidetracked. So let's, if you don't mind, Bruce, let's move along and give me a little bit of a brief background of what drew you into the accounting profession and maybe a little insight into your firm as well.
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. I started out as a math major at Bucknell University with some guidance from my favorite high school teacher and a guidance counselor who told me that Bucknell was known for their math program. They really were not. It's more of an engineering school. certainly had a solid math program, but I discovered after about a year that I was looking for more of a practical application of the mathematical interest that I had developed over the years. And it seemed like accounting had a much more practical application than abstract algebra, which was the beginning class required for sophomores who were math majors, at least at Bucknell. So I made that change in my major, continued through my senior year, graduated on time, and decided that I wanted to try public accounting rather than working for a small business. My dad was operating a series of building supply centers in Pennsylvania where I grew up at that point, and would have been happy to have me come to work with him, but he understood my desire to at least try out public accounting. So I started with a firm that has become Berlin Ramos in 1973, as I believe you included in the introduction. I've had college friends ask me how in the world I've kept the same job for all these years, and my answer typically is to say that it's not the same job, not only because of the extremely different level of responsibility that I have now than I did when I first started, but the whole way that a CPA firm does business. We're very much in the modern world of technology, and I'm looking right now at 3 computer screens, trying not to be distracted from them, actually. So I'll turn my back to them as I talk with you this morning. But it's been a great challenge to see how technology has transformed the way that we take care of our clients.
Yeah, well, let's talk a little more about that. What are some of the biggest differences? Is it more than technology? I suspect it is.
Certainly it is. I think the expectations that clients have of an accountant are very different in 2016 than they were in the 1970s, or even maybe as recently as 15 or 20 years ago, with the ready accessibility of knowledge and the speed that we can process transactions. Certainly technology has changed the way that clients think about our capacity to do work for them. But I think that a very positive change that's happened is that in more recent years, our clients look at us as valued business advisors and not fundamentally as somebody that just helps them comply with tax laws or perhaps other requirements that are imposed upon them. So our best clients are the ones who see the value that we can bring to them, who let us know about questions and issues that they have and get us involved in helping them solve those problems.
And so how do you get clients to see you as advisors and not bean counters?
I think a lot of it comes from the sources of business that we have. Being a long-established CPA firm with our roots going back even to before I started with the firm in the 1970s, we do have a big roster of clients, many of them well-established and well-respected business people in the D.C. area. And we have a lot of law firms, for instance, that we have worked with to service those clients over the years. We tend to get referrals from clients, from those lawyers, of other business people who understand that they need a significant relationship with financial professionals. I think in many cases we start the relationship with the expectation already at that higher level. And often, frankly, because we're taking over for another CPA firm who's not met the expectations that the client had. So that's, in a sense, you like to be the second firm in rather than the first one, because you have the opportunity to really shine by comparison to another firm that perhaps didn't meet the needs that the client has.
That's really interesting. And Can you tell me a little more about the types of clients you have and the industry specialities?
Sure, I'd be happy to do that. I would say that about 40 to 50% of our firm's business is done with either individuals or businesses that are connected in some way to Washington, D.C. region real estate. Our largest clients are family-owned real estate businesses that we've had relationships with, in some cases, for several decades. In that case, we're dealing with relatively few individuals that control a significant amount of business. In real estate, ordinarily, if you own more than one property, you will have a separate legal entity for each property. But we appreciate clients that can bring us a lot of business because there's a certain efficiency in being able to service those clients dealing with one or at most a small handful of people that we interact with to make sure that everything that they need is taken care of. So that's our strongest firm area and certainly the most significant in terms of the volume of business we do, although by no means do we only deal with these family real estate businesses. We have many other small business clients and some not so small, really. Our largest clients have revenues in many millions of dollars a year. But we can take care of smaller businesses, too, with the approach that we take to client service.
Just focusing back on the real estate for a moment. Real estate is a pretty broad term.
That's true.
So, are you talking about commercial real estate, residential builders, REITs, maybe even apartment owners? Does it cover the whole range?
Pretty much the whole gamut. The one category that you mentioned that we're not involved in directly are the REITs, the Real Estate Investment Trust. Those tend to be so massive that they end up requiring services at a level where they're going to typically seek out one of the big four or other international CPA firms because they're looking for a certain credential or may even be required by their bylaws to have that kind of a firm involved to do their annual audit, for instance. We really do not do any significant amount of SEC work. That would be one of the few areas that we stay away from. But otherwise, apart from the REITs, the different categories of real estate types that you've mentioned are ones that we would be involved with. We have clients that own office buildings and shopping centers, apartment buildings, warehouses, hotels. So a very diverse client base in that sense.
And why has real estate become a niche for Berlin Ramos? Is there a historic kind of background to that?
Absolutely. But we have one client that I believe traces their origins to the same year as we do, which was 1947. So we have a history of a relationship with that firm between our founding partner, Paul Berlin, and that firm back actually to the late 1940s or early 1950s. So part of it has just come out of the roots or origins of our business. And I think it's been sustainable partly because we've taken care of these good clients for many, many years, and partly because Washington, D.C. is an area where real estate is very valuable and where at least the better real estate companies have been able to at least survive and often thrive even through downturns in the real estate market on a national basis.
So give me maybe your thoughts on having a niche practice rather than versus a general accounting practice.
Well, I think to the extent that you have more of a niche practice, then you have an identity that is a little bit easier to promote. And it certainly has been to our advantage to have that identity. I can give, I think, a pretty short story about a client that we picked up a few years ago that came because of the substantial involvement that we already have had with other real estate clients. This relatively new client to our firm actually bought a building from one of our firm's clients. There were a series of emails around that transaction, and this now Berlin Ramos client saw that I was in on those emails and that I was providing certain valuable advice leading up to the transaction. He politely waited until after the tax filing deadline on April 15th and contacted me shortly after that to meet with him to talk about the possibility of taking over the accounting for his business, which owns about 25 office buildings in the Washington, D.C. area. That opportunity all came from the credibility that I already had because he knew that I was taking care of the client that he bought an office building from.
Well, that's a great little story. That explains a lot as to how you continue to generate business in that particular niche. So I know we talked already a little bit about the rock and roll band, and I'm sure that already makes you stand out among CPAs. However, I think you have some other unique things going on. For example, I believe you have a Toastmasters group within Berlin Ramos. Is that correct?
That's right. I can't give my wife full credit for that Toastmasters Club, but one of the things that she said to me over the years is, Bruce, you have to remind your accountants that they're in public accounting. They need to be able to communicate with people. And Toastmasters focuses on communication skills and leadership. A lot of accountants tend to be more introverted. I don't really count myself in that group, but I was happy to get the Toastmasters Club started. There's actually one of our executives in the company, a woman who had read about Toastmasters and brought the idea to me. We've had the club for about 3 years. It's a closed club, meaning it has Berlin Ramos employees only in it. And typically at any point in time, we have about 20 members in the club, which is about 40% of our firm's employees. And we feel it's been very helpful to bring a lot of people along in their confidence level in public speaking, and that certainly has a spillover effect in interacting with clients and prospects as well.
Yeah, perhaps do you have a story maybe you can share with us as to how Toastmasters helped you or one of your employees?
I'd be happy to do that. One of our employees on the support staff developed a strong relationship with another firm member who sadly passed away a couple of years ago. But in the meantime, Azel had begun attending Toastmasters and had gotten to the point where his comfort level speaking in front of a group was substantially higher than it had been in the past. When we went to the memorial service for the employee who had passed away, Azel was able to get up in front of a large group and speak in a very compelling, heartfelt way without the nerves that probably would have precluded his doing that had he not been part of the club. Now, that's one story where it had a real practical benefit in his life and allowed him really to honor this former employee who had passed away.
That's a great story, Bruce. That's a really good story. Mm-hmm. So, I also know that you participate in a mastermind group, Vistage Group.
Right. It's actually a peer group of chief executive officers, and they make sure that you're the only one of your type in the group in terms of the business that you're responsible for. So the Vistage group that I'm in has about 15 members, and none of the other members are involved with a CPA firm. The idea is that you can speak freely and both give advice to other chief executive officers in the Washington, D.C. area, and you can talk about issues or problems that you're having without worrying that a competitor might take advantage of anything that you're sharing in a group. One of the wonderful things about the organization is the speakers that they bring in to talk with us about really how to make our companies stronger and how to be better leaders within those companies. I've been involved in the group for about 2 or 2.5 years now. We just had a meeting yesterday, in fact, and we had an outside speaker who was terrific at talking with us about communicating in ways that we can communicate more effectively.
And have you gotten specific help which has helped you with the firm from this group?
Yes, there have been a number of issues that I've brought to the group, and they've been very helpful in giving us input. About once a year, you end up hosting a meeting in your office, and when you do that, you get to talk about your own personal background and the firm's background, where the firm is today, and perhaps bring up an issue for consideration. One of the meetings that we hosted in our office, I asked for input about developing future leaders, as we're to a point in the firm where we have several partners that are getting closer to retirement age, and we were looking for input about the best ways to develop future leaders. And we elicited input from about a dozen CEOs who were in the meeting with us that day. We got some very helpful advice.
That's really important. And I know sometimes it can be lonely at the top. Do you think it's helpful to be able to share with fellow entrepreneurs in a similar position to yours ideas or issues you have?
I think it helps a lot, and I'm just sorry that I didn't start participating sooner. I think the sense of camaraderie there, and just finding out that other people do have the same issues come up, that as long as you're dealing with people, there are going to be certain people-level problems that you have, that it's not just technical problems that are unique to public accounting or any other business, but a matter of thinking about the best way that you could take care of both your staff and encourage them, and the best way that you can serve your clients.
Yeah. I think I understand a lot about what you've been talking about. We work with a number of CPA firms, and there's a constant concern about how to develop the firm, how to replace outgoing partners, as you just said, and keep the integrity of the firm in place.
Right.
So, when I started as a chartered accountant over 30 years ago already, I got to tell you, I didn't play a musical instrument or I wasn't part of a rock band.
Okay.
I actually was not very fond of public speaking at the time, and I knew nothing. I'd never even heard of a mastermind group, so I guess I wouldn't have been heavily recruited by your firm. That said, could you talk a little bit about the environment you try to create at Berlin Ramos? I think you've won awards as Accounting Now's best accounting firms to work for 6 years running. I think that's an incredible record.
We maybe need to update the footer on the emails. I think we actually were named for the 9th straight year by Accounting Today. It's one of the best accounting firms to work for, and we're very happy about that. That result is based on a survey that is sent to our staff members who complete the survey and send it to a third party. We have no control over that. We don't know who has said what or how anyone's answered the questions. And something like 75% of the ranking is based on that. The other 25%, I believe, is based on your benefits package and how you answer certain questions about how the firm functions in a practical way. We have an annual event we call Staff Appreciation Day, and we've been doing that now for about 12 or 13 years, I believe. And it's just an example of how we as partners try to express appreciation for the staff and the sacrifices that they make, especially during our busy tax season, to help us serve the clients. We try to cultivate an environment where people do feel appreciated. Certainly, if there are areas that need to be addressed as far as weaknesses that need to be strengthened, we want to communicate that information to staff members, but we want to do it in a caring way so that they can see that our motivation is to make them the best possible professionals and not to discourage them in any way. I'm thrilled that we've cultivated the kind of environment where we have a very low turnover rate, and our people seem to really like each other and like coming to work here.
Yeah, you just mentioned some interesting words, caring way. Can you kind of flesh that out a little bit for me?
I think part of it is to just show some interest in people both professionally and personally. Certainly you don't want to seem intrusive or that you're prodding in a way that would feel uncomfortable to a staff member. But there are many people in the firm, I know their spouse's name, maybe their children's names, ask a little bit about what they've been doing on vacation, show some interest in their lives outside of the firm, as well as just trying to encourage them along the way in their progress within the firm.
Yeah, I believe you're about to initiate a professional development and mentoring program.
That's right.
Could you tell me a little bit about that, please?
It's interesting. The seeds of it probably go back for many, many years, but in some ways I'd say this particular program is an outcome that had its beginnings about 3 years ago when two of the managers in the firm, in the context of an out-of-town management retreat that we had, suggested that we had a more in-depth professional development program. It's taken us a while to get to the point of implementing it, but I give those two managers and some others in the firm credit for continuing to promote the idea that we needed to involve more people than just the partners in mentoring other professionals within the firm and help them focus on their career goals on a more regular, systematic way than the partners alone were able to do.
Uh-huh. And do you have the idea of reverse mentoring, where you have people with a couple of years knowledge actually working with partners who have a couple of decades worth of experience?
We do, and I appreciate you asking that question. When one of the partners suggested that he wanted a young man who had just started with the firm within the last year or so to mentor him, I actually thought initially that he was kidding, but he was completely serious, and he wanted some help from this much younger accountant in the context of technology. And as soon as he told me that that was his motivation, my thought was, I could benefit from that too. So just as Dan is working with Dave, now Jana is working with Bruce. And in fact, I spent about an hour with her earlier this week to help me raise my profile electronically, so to speak. So we worked together on LinkedIn, where I had an account that essentially was completely dormant and now has become more active. So that's just an example of a specific cross-mentoring scenario that has already helped me.
And how's that going in general across the firm?
It's just early enough that it would be disingenuous for me to suggest that I can already see an enormous practical impact, but I would say that it's not too early to say that I can sense a lot of enthusiasm on the part of the staff that we're moving forward in this area. There seems to be more of an energy, I think, and we're just creating more interactions between staff members, which I think can only have a good effect.
Yeah. Can you perhaps talk about bringing on the next generation of accountants? What are you and the firm doing in this area?
think the most practical thing that we're trying to focus on more and more is letting that next generation see exactly how we as the partners do our jobs. It's impossible to let them see every detail of that because so much of what we do ends up happening pretty spontaneously. But to the extent that we have planned meetings with clients or even meetings with a team that you might normally just run it yourself, we're trying to bring this next level of leader into those meetings more to see the face-to-face way that we interact with our clients to model that for them. I think that direct kind of involvement is more effective than any more academic approach.
You know, everything you say, it comes across like it sounds like you really enjoy what you do. But let me ask you a more difficult question. What is it that you perhaps wish you did better?
I wish I did better. I'll be candid enough to say that what I wish that I did better was tackling the nagging things that sometimes are just kind of there in the back of my mind, maybe something that doesn't have to be done today or even tomorrow, but just facing those more difficult situations that you're going to have to deal with at some point. I think I tend to gravitate more toward the relational side of the firm that I enjoy so much, or dealing with the clients that are appreciative and just fun to work with, and avoid sometimes the more difficult situations.
And what do you think your biggest challenges are today, Bruce?
Well, I'd say the biggest challenge for the accounting profession is dealing with the reality that you have a lot of aging baby boomers in leadership positions within CPA firms. Our circumstance is certainly not atypical in that regard. And making sure that we are bringing along those future leaders so the firm can be sustained and our great clients can be taken care of for, we hope, decades into the future is, I think, the biggest single challenge that we're facing.
Now, I know this is sort of an overused cliche. If you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards. Mm-hmm. So where do you see the opportunities for your firm looking forward?
Well, I think we're in a really vibrant area here where we are going to have a lot of opportunities to take care of clients that are going to be demanding in a good way. It's interesting. I focused on real estate almost exclusively as far as a specialty area within the firm. But sometimes we peg ourselves as the 3 R's, not reading, writing, arithmetic, but real estate, retirement plans, and restaurants. The Washington, D.C. area was just named by Bon Appetit as the best food city or the best restaurant city in the United States, which was kind of an astonishing thing considering that San Francisco, New York, and Charleston, lots of other great food places, of course, are in the United States too. We have a number of clients who are real estate owners and restaurant owners and operators, and we certainly think that that's a great growth opportunity for us moving into the future. The qualified retirement plans is another area that a lot of CPA firms do not get involved in because it's so technical and specialized, but we do, and we think as more and more firms are thinking about how are you going to provide appropriate retirement both for ourselves as owners and for our staff members, that we're going to have lots of opportunities in that regard as well.
So Bruce, time's winding down. So one last question, and it's a kind of very broad one, but where do you see the industry heading?
Well, I see that the CPA is going to be a valued business advisor going into the future. A lot of people ask me, well, what in the world are you guys going to do if we go to a flat tax in this country? Well, one of my answers is that you still have to know what the tax applies to, and that the tax law could be very complex, even if you did have just one rate, which I think is what people think of when they hear flat tax. But I think that the profession is going to continue to have to grow as the demands for help with businesses grow. I don't think in the short term we're going to see a lot less complexity, either in what's required at the financial statement reporting level or in the tax area, and that we're going to be challenged to keep up with all the changes, both in expectations and changes in regulations. But I think there's always going to be a place for good, bright people that have an attitude of lifetime learning and are willing to keep improving their skill set to keep our clients happy.
Yeah, I see a lot of CPAs struggling with going from the compliance services, the historical work they've done, to advisory services. Mm-hmm. What kind of advice do you have for firms who want to move more into the advisory services area?
Well, it's interesting. As you were framing the question, the thought that came to my mind is you need to have a lot of good questions that you can ask clients to guide them in the direction where you can help them. I know that's a broad answer, but one of the benefits that we've had, as I already mentioned, from the Vistage Group is we have a lot of really good speakers. One of them is Ian Altman, who's written a book called Same Side Selling, and a little acronym that he uses is FIT, F-I-T, and it kind of has a double meaning, where you want to make sure there's a good fit between your prospect and your firm, so you have a good, solid client relationship, like two pieces of a puzzle that fit together well. But it also means finding impact together. I think we need to be educated as to what is important to our clients and prospect, and what areas beyond the traditional CPA firm, tax return, financial statement, would they value, making sure that we are well informed in those areas, and then having the confidence to move the relationship forward to help the clients in those areas.
That's very insightful, Bruce. Unfortunately, our time's just about up. So I'd like to thank Bruce Buchanan, President and Managing Principal of Berlin Ramos, for being so generous with his time today. Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you. It's been great to be with you.
Bruce, if people want to learn more about Berlin Ramos, what's the best way for them to do so?
I would think to start with their website. We're going to be updating that again soon, but it already has a lot of good information there. We're also on LinkedIn and Twitter, but I would say just starting with berlinramos.com would be a great introduction to the firm, and there's information there on how you could contact us, and even some photographs so you can have a look at some of the people that you would be dealing with.
Okay, there you have it. This is Ian Wellham saying goodbye for now. We'll see you next time on the Accounting Success Podcast.